Yes, there you go. Well, the other match between Switzerland and Denmark, an incredible game in Basel, by the way, just to tell you, we'll show you the goals from this later, or some of them anyway, because there were 6 of them. Switzerland 3-0 up with 6 minutes to go, and the Danes scored 3 goals in the next 10 minutes. It finished 3-3, but after 2 wins on the bounce, the Republic of Ireland are top of Group D this evening. Our next match is away to Denmark, who just have 1 point to show after their draw tonight. But at the Aviva Stadium, buzzing after the victory. There were a few edgy moments at the end, but Damien Duff, the difference between what we saw tonight and what we saw in Gibraltar on Saturday, striking.
Yeah, I thought everyone was brilliant tonight there. They won every battle on the pitch, and you can even see, 3-4 minutes to go there, there's a throw in up the line, and Mick is pushing everyone up to squeeze the pitch rather than dropping off and defending what you got. I think he deserves an awful lot of credit. He's changed it from the weekend. He recognised that we needed an extra man in midfield. So absolutely top class. I said it was difficult to pick a man of the match. It could have been 5 or 6 of them. So hats off to a lot of them. They were brilliant. Yes,
Stephen, Ronnie said in commentary that it was the best Irish performance he'd seen in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. Would you go along with that?
I have to agree with him. Yeah, it was absolutely night and day from the weekend. Like, it was unbelievable. But the part we were looking at was the 3 midfield. Was that going to be us sitting back? But not in any shape or form. Whelan was there to protect, and then he allowed Horan and Hendrick to push on Brady McLean, and he was that security. So it was fantastic to see us pushing forward. Every pass we got, every time we intercepted the ball, we looked to go forward, we looked to get men to the box.
At the Aviva Stadium back in Dublin, and winning by a goal to nil, Ireland top of Group D after 2 games. Richie, how would you rate that performance this evening? Because we've never been beaten by Georgia, but we have had issues against them and problems against them. They always cause us difficulties.
It's the same result, same outcome as Saturday, but what a different experience. I can't remember enjoying watching an Ireland match as much as I enjoyed watching this tonight, and it's brilliant to have a manager whose pre-match or midweek comments about what he'd like to see from his players or what he intends getting his players to do. There's a link between that and what the players actually do. We've been hearing Martin and Roy for the last however long talk about getting in people's faces and playing with more tempo and having keeping the ball and being more creative and being more attacking. It was empty words. We never saw it on the pitch. And tonight, everything that Mick said during the week, everything he said before the game, we saw it. He said Glenn Whelan would get in the ball and pass it, and that's what he did. He said we keep 3 up front, with or without the ball. That's what we did. It was a joy compared to some of the stuff we've had to endure over the last couple of years.
OK, well, show us the differences between now and O'Neill Keane.
Even from the start, we were watching how this team was set up. So this is and this is actually not the piece at all. We were
all right, we'll just verbalise it. Yeah.
This isn't.
OK.
I think this is some of the opportunities we had.
This is the chances coming from pressure. They were always, on the front foot and ready to.
Would you want to have a look at the pressure now, please? Can we see that? Because this, Damien, people, we hear a lot of it with Klopp and Liverpool and all that stuff, and people think, just go and put pressure on. But it has to be the right type of pressure. And as Richie said before, we didn't see that at times under the previous regime.
You could see they were coached, they were organised with it, and listen, it takes its toll. That's why maybe last 15, 20, we did look a bit leggy, but I think we steamrolled them for 70, 80 minutes, and they just couldn't cope with it. And if, like I touched on before the game, if you give Georgia time and space, they will hurt you. So the extra man in midfield, but always willing to jump like that there. That's just come from pressure, and all of a sudden we have a 2v1 going at goal, and then lucky not to score. Just come from hunger, intensity, desire, and like Richie says, carrying out your manager's orders, if you can call it that. Always on the front foot, picking up half spaces where they can cover space or press. And this was relentless for 70, 80 minutes. Like I said, it's a hard game. If you ever look at Liverpool, and you can flag for 5-10 minutes, especially near the end of games. But fair play to the lads, they stuck at it. And again, chances just from pressure, and they just could not cope with our intensity. And you'd like to think, going on with it in the group, this is the way we're going to play. Said Mick's been around the block. He's a top manager. Terry in with him there, and I just thought it was top class. And I'd echo again what Ronnie said, that it's the best we've seen in 2-3 years.
And Richie, just to go back to that point we're making about the setup, and he referred to it there. You picked up on it straight away, right from the kick-off.
Yeah, we hear this, cliche all week, make this place a fortress, make it hard to come, make it difficult to play here. And I didn't get the feeling over the last couple of years that Serbia or Wales or this Georgia team found it hard to come here. Quite the opposite. In fact, they got the majority of the pitch to themselves. But tonight, in this evening's game, from the very start, that thing that Mick mentioned there about pushing on and not letting them just have their own way and playing out from the back. So if we see the footage here in a moment, it was clearly evidence of something that they've worked on during the week. Now, this might seem a blindingly obvious thing to do. The players at this level should work on things during the week. But I didn't get that feeling at all from the Martin O'Neill era that was happening. This is the main front three players. The goalkeeper, you can see what he wants to do. Two Georgian lads have split. They're aiming to get the ball and play it out. They now know it's not an option because we've been so assertive or aggressive when they have the ball not to allow them to do so. Similar scenario presents itself here. In open play, it's back to the goalkeeper. Each of the three front men are as advanced as it can possibly be, which forces Georgia to do what they don't want to do, which is to turn it into a fight ball, which Duffy wins at the back. And even when we had the ball, there's 4 Irish players almost on the most advanced defender there. I said beforehand that McGoldrick's job tonight was to make sure he'd have players around him and decent servers. He was never isolated. He always had players, midfielders up supporting him, as Mick said they would. And in the second half, if we were wondering would they drop off, they did towards the end because they were tired. But this, stopping them playing, and this is it, this is like the cliche in action, make this place hard to play. This is how you do it. Joined up thinking between the players. They know what their job is and they know what each other's job is because they've worked on it all week, and he's been banging the same drum all week to get them to do so. So over the last few years we kept hearing the phrase that we don't have the players, we don't have the players. I don't think we had players that were prepared enough. There wasn't enough organisation done during the week. There wasn't enough thought or preparation gone into it. This week there was, and we saw the results. And defensively, Stephen, let's have a look at the other end of the field. How did we defend?
I thought we were excellent. I think when you get past the front three and the players that are putting pressure on the ball, then you're relying on your defenders to come up trumps when it comes to situations where they're getting through. And Richard Keogh and Duffy were extremely well organised and putting themselves in the line. But not only that, the fullbacks were covering around really well. We were intercepting balls. We were putting ourselves in positions where they were finding it very hard to break down. They like to play nice, intricate football around the box, but we were getting so many bodies around them and so many interceptions. It made it very hard for them to try and do that. And then on the other side of it, when they did get an opportunity, headers in the box, crosses coming in, the things that we expect our defenders to do, but they just dealt with it extremely well today. And the really, really nice side was, well, then we did get the ball back. Our first pass was always to an Irish shirt. It was so nice to see that it wasn't just a hoof up the pitch. It was a controlled manner. We got the ball back and we found someone in a green jersey, which takes the pressure off it, which was amazing to see.
Yeah, and I remember I read a quote today from Harry Arter talking about the game. I know it's different when you're away from home. The game in Tbilisi, where we were dominated possession-wise. I think tonight it finished up at 50-50 possession-wise. We had more chances, more passes, more attacking, dangerous attacks and all that stuff. But he said they felt like they'd played Man City in Tbilisi. Now, the changes out there this evening for you were pretty dramatic from an Irish perspective.
I think it just comes from the manager. Richie mentioned their preparation. You get the feel off the team tonight that they were brilliantly prepared, whereas under the previous regime, you always felt they were a bit disjointed. So yeah, over in Tbilisi, there was a lot of travel, it was hot. But listen, we sat back in the edge of our box. You'll never get the ball back defending like that. And the big difference to tonight is we squeezed the life out of them, as Richie brilliantly showed there. And we got the ball back in good areas and got chances off it. So I said hats off to Mick McCarthy.
The chances that the Republic of Ireland created, Damien, in the second half. Mick mentioned in his interview that we could and should have put it to bed a lot earlier. Definitely,
and I said it was a nervy last 5-10 minutes. It could have cost us. But yeah, a lot of good play down the left. Enda Stevens, brilliant to see him in the team and brilliant to see him doing well, slashing at it there on his unfavoured right foot. But I said we never stopped and we always looked dangerous. And this was a dangerous ball for me. Listen, their two centre halves weren't any great shapes, but that channel ball always down the line. McGoldrick would chase anything, and he's not the quickest in the world, but his timing and his movement, he often got on the end of it. Again, little snapshot there, yeah, good block. But listen, thoroughly deserved the 3 points. Yeah, we've beaten them again by the odd goal, but it could have been well more.
There were many candidates for man of the match this evening, and he was the outstanding one.
Yeah, no, he was excellent. I think he was asked to play an extremely different role, which we highlighted before the game, because he was up there on his own. So the willingness to run channels, to get on the end of the ball, to be the first line of attack and always be available was outstanding for him. But then when he did receive the ball, he didn't give it away. He was able to bring people into the game. He was clever enough to be able to find the right pass, pick the decision, and then for the goal, the turn he created, got the free kick, Conor was able to step up and put it away. I've seen him a lot this season for Sheffield United, and he's doing really well for them, scoring goals, and he's leading the line for them too. So he is taking that form into the Irish jersey. Mick has spent a lot of time with him throughout his career, working with him, and to have a player that can do both sides of it, when we need to put two up front, he can drop into the hole and be creative and turn and find space. Today he showed the other side of his game, where he's willing to run down the channels, intercept balls, flick things on, and be that lone striker, which, you know, we've been screaming out for a little while, and he's proved himself today. So it's a great asset for us to have going forward.
It wasn't just the quality of his runs and the quality of of him on the ball, but as well the service. The service, it's an obvious point to make, but it makes such a difference. And why I keep stressing is because I can't remember how many times I've sat here watching Ireland play, and Shane Long is usually the one. And you almost feel sorry for the fella because he's so isolated, and the balls are just aimlessly hoofed up in his general direction, and he's on his own, and he's surrounded, and he's outnumbered and outmuscled. If an Irish team sets up like this, particularly with a player like McGoldrick or Shane could come back in, there's so much more chance of getting a decent performance out of him because of the way we set up. Again, we're harping on about the same thing. It's a team that has cohesion in it and a bit of thought gone into it. So McGoldrick was brilliant. He was so good.
Damien, put the performance, maybe just put it in context. You know, we spoke about what had gone before and the low confidence and the mood in the camp that Mick had to try and heal and all that stuff. And the players all spoke about that. But there was pressure on them this evening after what happened in Gibraltar. And OK, there was the free pass given, make the judgment on them this evening. The matters off the field. There was a bit of tension coming in here this evening. There was no guarantees that the Republic of Ireland were going to leave here with 3 points tonight. No,
they've stood up to the plate though as well, and I think the tensions didn't help. Obviously, we mentioned earlier the stuff in the background. I don't think that helped either. There was a lot of gloom around the place. You could feel it even before kick-off. But yeah, I said hats off to the lads. But there's bigger tests to come. I don't want to get too carried away. I give them a free pass for Saturday. Brilliant performance tonight. Let's keep the feel-good factor going, the momentum. We've got Denmark and Gibraltar. We could well be in June 12 points clear, but big test, Denmark away. Gibraltar home, for me it's a given. A free pass, if you want to call it that. 3 points, I'd like to think. Denmark's the tough one.
We're giving out a lot of free passes here, lads, now.
But listen, it's a hell of a start, but again, bigger tester to come.
But, you know, it's going in the right direction.
It's progression, yeah, it's a progression. You can see that we've improved and we're moving on, and you can see the blueprint that Mick has set out his team to go on, which is fantastic. But the thing I'm really impressed with is the trigger. So when one player goes, he's being backed up by other players, which is often you'd see, like I said, Shane sometimes would go and he'd be isolated, and then the ball would get knocked around him and they'd be out. Whereas we were going in numbers. One player was going, and that was a trigger for someone else to follow him in and make sure the pass wasn't coming out. It was really nice to see, and you hear managers talking about, like I said, we spoke Klopp. Obviously, we're not going to put us on the same page as Liverpool, but it was great to see that in numbers going forward and putting pressure on the ball. OK, lads, for the moment, thank you. Look at Conor Harahan's goal again. It's memorable because it's a great strike, but also because, well, you'll see the tennis balls. We did discuss this at half-time, and Seamus Coleman has spoken about it there as well. Mick did too. But let's look at this goal again. And, well, Damien, the strike was brilliant. What are your thoughts now about the protest that some of the Irish fans made here this evening?
It's the only time a tennis ball's ever made me angry, as you probably saw at half time. But listen, you know my thoughts on it. It added on 3 needless minutes that they nearly scored off. As simple as that. But again, we're talking about something when we should be talking about this. This is world class, you know, quality. Messi does that, it goes viral on Twitter. What's viral on Twitter for us tonight is tennis balls. So it's top class, and listen, me and Richie are going to differ on this a lot, I think. But the one thing I will say, just to finish on it, we know obviously who we're talking about here. Too many times, you know, it's always our CEO in the headlines instead of talking about the football. It added pressure to the game for me, 1,000,000%. It took the shine off the game. And I don't think we should be talking about him. I couldn't tell you, and I follow sport, I couldn't tell you who the CEO of the RFU is. I couldn't tell you. And for me, that answers all your questions, because I don't need to know who the CEO is, and I shouldn't be reading front page stuff here either.
It's Philip Brown. Richie, I suppose the fans who came here, Richie, hang on a sec. The fans who came here, like you mentioned it at half-time, that, with the tennis balls to make their protest, they wanted to make their voices heard in a different way, and they did that.
Well, there's a few things to understand the context of maybe some of their frustrations. We know for the last number of years they've had banners taken from them as they go into home ground here and away grounds on their travel, so they can't express themselves in that way at all. To Duffer's point that it added 3 minutes, it didn't. It just delayed the restart of the game 3 minutes. If there was 11 minutes to be played between the goal and the half-time, it just delayed the start of those 11 minutes. It didn't add on an extra 3 minutes. But the reasons, like, there's no point in us talking here just about the tennis balls. Like, there's a reason for it. And there are lots of, like, very legitimate reasons. Like, even this weekend, we had the Taoiseach asking for some clarity. We had SIP2 weigh in on behalf of their members, employees in the FAI wondering why at the same time when they were being asked to take a 10 or 50% wage cut, the board were approving an extra perk of free rent to the CEO. The board still hasn't come out and explained fully why their solution to a cash flow problem, which they still haven't explained why they had it, was to ask an employee for a personal loan. And Sport Ireland have also come out and asked why they weren't told, because they should have been.
We will get the answers to those questions at that joint, the Oireachtas committee.
Yeah, so the role of that
Oireachtas for Sport Ireland, the FAI.
Yeah, so that Oireachtas committee has a hell of a job here. They have a responsibility here. It's robust, rigorous. They need to get every answer that of all the questions that people are asking.
But is there anything to doubt you that they will get the answers that they require, or they will not?
Have you seen John Delaney's previous appearance in front of an Oireachtas committee? It was the equivalent of watching a fella be tickled and flirted with by some politicians. It was embarrassing stuff.
But that will...
The personnel has changed.
Yes.
So now all eyes, and we need to keep harping on at this until the FAI and whatever delegation goes there appears in front of the politicians, because they need to get clear answers to how Irish football is being run, because there's a hell of a lot of people who are here tonight and who don't come anymore because they're completely disillusioned with where Irish football is and where they believe it's going. And they're looking for more meaningful change than John Delaney probably changing where he parks his car outside the building in Abbottstown. They've created a new role for him, no recruitment process involving anyone else, new role, he got it straight away, and funny enough the remit of the new role is very, very similar to the job he just left. So actual change has to happen here for people to get back on board.
Give me your definitively what sort of change do you want to see happen?
I think the makeup of the board, they've been together a long time, and I think that needs to be looked at and freshened up and completely reinvigorated. I think the way in which the executive is set up, whatever about the job titles, whatever about the current CEO, the interim CEO or the new CEO coming in, we've always gotten the sense from a distance that the power in Irish football rests in one man, that the structure of Irish football and the FAI is too reliant and dependent on one man, and that's not a healthy situation as well. All the stuff about the rent, like why has that happened, all the stuff about his wages, this is a song we've been singing for years, but we still, it's not, I haven't heard a reason why someone who does what he does justifies the wage that the board give him. Well,
again, I'm sure that's probably another question that will be put by that joint committee to the FAI delegation.
Because public money goes into Irish football.
2.7 million from last year from Sport Ireland. Damien, what sort of changes do you want to see in the FAI?
Richie's asking for a change. I'd back him on that as well. Freshening up. You see Niall Quinn recently come out with a lot of new, fresh ideas. Whether he can back them up, I don't know.
He said last night he wouldn't apply for the chief executive's job.
Whilst John is on the board as well.
In its current shape, yeah.
Well, you can't blame him. Niall's a very clever man, but listen, the thought of Niall coming in and young, fresh ideas, would excite me, and I'd fully back him.
He'd be delighted you call him young.
If you look at it from a fan's point of view, if, like, for instance, the current old management team that we had with O'Neill and Keane, things weren't working for 18 months, and a change was demanded to come in for that because things weren't happening in the field. The same has been happening off the field for a long time, so you can see why the fans want to change, because if you're a manager, you get 18 months of things not going right and something has to happen. If off the field it's been going well for longer, probably, you can see why the fans want to see something change, want something to happen, and for to be Irish football to be progressing and moving on.
Well, that Dáil hearing, the Oireachtas committee hearing, takes place on I think it's scheduled for the 10th of April. But there is the table this evening. The Republic of Ireland, 2 wins out of 2. Switzerland with 4 points from their first 2 games. Denmark on 1 point. An amazing match, Stephen Kelly. Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable to think that the 3-0 up with 40 minutes to go and to come back, but it's fantastic for us. It leads into our hands. You know, both those teams taking points off each other allows us to go top of the table and in pole position going into the games. Like I said, we've seen progression, we've seen us improve, and hopefully the longer Mick has with this team, the more we get, the better we'll be, and the more equipped we'll be for better opposition, which is what's going to come next. Switzerland and Denmark pose an entirely different threat to what we faced over the last couple of games, but if we are progressing the way we are and we are producing quality football and pushing forward and with enthusiasm and pace and closing people down the way we are, hopefully we should be able to pose a threat against these teams.
Yeah, I suppose, Richie, the problem, we're playing Denmark away and then Gibraltar after that. Yeah. We would have liked those. You can't get everything, but we'd like the games the other way around.
Well, I think the opening 2 fixtures that we have had were almost as good as we could have asked for, bar maybe switching the Gibraltar away game to home. That's on paper the easiest or the most inviting 2 fixtures you would like in your new reign as a manager, given that there's no friendly and no preparation time. So it's been a really good start. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic without getting overly carried away, because as we've said, Denmark and Switzerland are very, very different prospects to the 2 oppositions we faced this weekend.